It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. My name's Raymond Wilkes. I'm 74 years old. I've worked the same stretch of farmland in southern Illinois since I was big enough to climb onto a tractor seat. My bones ache every morning and I don't move as quick as I used to, but I'm not stupid, and I sure as hell ain't dead. That's why my hands started shaking when I walked past the old landline in the kitchen and heard my son Levi's voice. I had just come in from feeding the cows. Mud still caked my boots. The floor creaked under me, but they didn't hear it. I stood there, listening through the hallway wall like a ghost. I don't care what the doctors say, Levi told someone. Dad's gonna go soon. Might as well lock down the land before it gets messy. We already got the will set. Just need him to sign the transfer papers before his next appointment. I stood frozen, my hand still holding the doorknob. Even if he lingers, Levi continued, he won't notice. He's slipping. Half the time he thinks Mom is still alive. Just smile and keep talking nice. He'll sign whatever we put in front of him. They buried me. Right there, while I was still standing in my own kitchen. And they were counting on me not knowing it. I didn't go in. I backed away slow and quiet. I left a trail of muddy boot prints through the back porch and sat down on the top step. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I wasn't losing my mind. My memory was sharp as a tack. Sure, I forgot the keys now and then, but hell, I remembered every year I'd planted corn instead of soybeans since 1978. I remembered the day my wife, Alma, died. I remembered how Levi cried at the funeral and told me he'd take care of me when I got old. Now here he was, whispering about transfer papers, like I was just another stubborn stump to dig out of the ground. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Levi came out an hour later with his wife, Dina. She smiled that fake little smile of hers, the one that never reached her eyes. "Daddy Ray," she chirped, "we were thinking, maybe it's time to simplify things around here. Maybe focus on rest. Let Levi take more off your plate." I stared out at the barn. My granddad built that barn in 1919. Every single board in that roof was replaced by hand, by me. Simplify? I'm fine, I said, slow and flat. Plenty of work left in me. They exchanged a look, like I was a toddler insisting I could still tie my own shoes. "Well," Levi said carefully, "the lawyer is drawing up some documents. Just some legal stuff in case, anything happens." "What kind of documents?" I asked. "Oh, just basic transfer of management. Nothing major. You'd still live here, of course. We just handle the hard parts. The taxes. The land titles." So they were really doing it. Legal betrayal. While I was still alive. I looked Levi square in the eyes. "I built this farm. Every fence post, every irrigation line, every grain bin. You really think I'm gonna hand it over just 'cause you say I'm too old? Dad. Don't dad me." He flinched. "I buried your mother in that field under the walnut tree. You want me to sign over her land too?" His jaw clenched, but he said nothing. I stood up. "Y'all better be real careful. A man who's alive and silent ain't the same as a man who's dead." If this story already has you on edge, hit that subscribe button for more powerful real-life stories that shake you to your core. Trust me, you're gonna want to see how this one unfolds. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch with my thermos of black coffee, staring out at the moonlit fields. Alma used to say the land spoke to her in the quiet hours. I hoped she could still hear it, wherever she was. I thought about all the years Levi had spent beside me in those fields, sweating under the sun. I taught him how to rotate crops, how to spot a storm by the way the crows flew. I gave him everything. And now he was treating me like a worn-out tractor, ready for the scrap heap. But I wasn't gonna make it easy for him. The next morning, I drove myself into town. That's right, so I still had my license and I passed my eye exam last fall, thank you very much. I stopped by an old friend's office. Curtis Denton. He used to be a hotshot attorney in Springfield until his stroke slowed him down. Now he handled wills and farm contracts for old-timers like me. We sat in his dusty office surrounded by law books and boxes of files no one had opened since the 90s. I told him everything, about Levi, the will, the transfer papers. Curtis didn't even blink. You'd be shocked how often I hear stories like this, Ray. Farmland's worth more than gold now. These kids aren't farming for pride. They're farming for inheritance. Can I stop them? I asked. Oh, you can do more than that. You can make it burn. He helped me draft a new will. One Levi wouldn't see coming. I didn't take Levi out of the will, no. That would have been too easy. Instead, I added a clause, one that would tie everything up so tight, it'd take a team of lawyers and a decade to cut through it. The land would stay in my name until my death, sure. But I added a joint conservator. Someone Levi never met. Someone I trusted more than my own blood. Her name was Emily. I hadn't seen Emily in nearly 20 years. She was Alma's niece, and she used to spend summers on the farm when she was a teenager. She was smart, soft-spoken, but sharper than any city lawyer I'd ever met. She went off to college, got her degree in agriculture law, and I heard she ended up working for the USDA. I called her, told her the situation. She came down on the next train. We met at the diner in town. She looked just like Alma had at that age, steady, kind, and strong. I'm not asking you to fight my battles, I told her. Just to help me hold the line until I'm gone. She smiled. Uncle Ray, you gave me more than summers. You gave me a second home. I'll do more than hold the line. I nodded. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't buried. Not yet. And they were about to learn that a man doesn't go quiet just because folks are ready to carve up what he's built. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what happens when a betrayed father fights back with the law on his side. This story is just getting started. It didn't take Levi long to notice something was off. By the end of the week, he came knocking, his boots crunching the gravel like they owned it. Dina followed close behind, holding a manila envelope like it was gold. They didn't come up on the porch right away. I watched from the rocking chair as they stood there whispering by the truck, like they were planning a sneak attack. Levi finally stepped up. "Morning, Dad," he said, too cheerful. "You got a minute?" I nodded slowly, sipping my coffee. Always got a minute for family. He handed me the envelope. "It's just the paperwork we talked about. Real simple. All above board. Just needs your signature." I took the envelope. Didn't even open it. I just stared at him. "You get this drawn up in town?" He blinked. "Yeah. At DeVore and Holt." I chuckled low and slow. "Funny. That's not the firm I'm working with." Dina's face twitched. Levi frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean I've already drawn up my own paperwork. My will. My land plan. My conservatorship. And it don't include anything from DeVore and Holt." He stepped back, surprised. "Dad, we were just trying to help. You've been forgetting things. You nearly missed your blood pressure meds last week. Still remembered enough not to sign my life away." Dina's voice tightened. "Ray, don't be dramatic. You're not thinking clearly." I leaned forward. "I've never thought clearer. You tried to bury me alive, Dina. Both of you. But I heard that call. You forget I built this house with my own two hands. These walls carry sound." Levi's face drained of color. His voice dropped to a whisper. You heard me? All of it. Every last word." The silence that followed was thick as fog. Dina opened her mouth like she was going to speak, but I raised a hand. "Don't bother. I got a new legal rep. Her name's Emily. You'll be hearing from her soon." They didn't stay long after that. Levi climbed back in the truck stiff and quiet. Dina tossed the manila envelope on the porch before they drove off, the tires spitting gravel behind them. I didn't bother picking it up. Let the wind take it if it wanted to. Later that afternoon, Emily and I met in the barn office to go over the updated will. She was methodical, firm, and sharp as ever. "They're going to challenge this," she said, tapping the binder. "Levi and Dina may not have a legal claim yet, but they'll try to prove diminished capacity. They'll say you're confused, unstable." "They already have," I said. "That's why we document everything. I got receipts, Emily. And I got fight left in me." She nodded. "Then it's time we make our first move." Emily helped me set up a transfer of power of attorney, but not to Levi. To her. It was temporary, just to hold them off while I got my affairs fully locked down. That way, if anything happened, or if they pulled something sneaky, Emily could step in without delay. We also moved the farm's business account to a local credit union with secure access, requiring dual authentication, mine and Emily's. I was no longer just an old man holding on to memories. I was a landowner defending a legacy. And I wasn't alone anymore. The real escalation came the next Sunday. Everyone in our small town goes to Graceview on Sundays, even folks who don't believe much in God. It's more than worship, it's social currency. And Levi knew that. I'd barely taken my seat in the pew when I noticed the sideways glances. A few folks nodded politely, but most of them whispered. Dina was already at the front with the choir, smiling like she hadn't just tried to erase me off the deed. Levi stepped up to the mic after announcements. "Before we begin the message today, I just wanted to say a quick word about our family. As many of you know, my dad's been having some health struggles, and we're working closely with doctors and legal advisors to make sure he's cared for properly." I stiffened. He's always been the heart of our farm. But lately, there've been signs that he needs rest, peace, and help making decisions. We ask for your prayers during this time. And your understanding. The choir hummed supportively. Some folks even clapped. I didn't move. That wasn't just an update. That was a setup. Levi was planting the seed, publicly, that I wasn't in my right mind. Once that idea took root in town, it'd be easier to challenge anything I signed or said. But he forgot one thing. I was still standing. After service, I stood up in the fellowship hall where folks gathered for donuts and coffee. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "I want to say something," I said. The room quieted. I may not walk as fast. I may not lift hay bales like I used to. But I'm not confused. I know what day it is. I know where I am. And I know exactly what my son and daughter-in-law are trying to do. A gasp went through the crowd. They came into my house with legal papers. Tried to get me to sign over everything I built. And now they're standing here trying to convince you I don't know what I'm doing. That's betrayal. Plain and simple. Levi stepped forward. "Dad, that's not what this is." "I heard you," I snapped. "I heard you planning it. And I will not be buried while I'm still breathing." I looked around the room. I fought for this land my whole life. It's not about pride, it's about legacy. And I won't be shamed for protecting it. Then I walked out. When I got home, Emily was waiting on the porch. She had a file in her hands. "They filed something with the county," she said. "A petition for medical evaluation." I laughed. A cold, sharp sound. "Of course they did. They're asking for the court to assign a state-appointed guardian," she continued. "They want to bypass your conservator. Say you're incompetent and acting against your own interests." I looked out across the fields. Sun was setting low, turning the crops gold. I'd planted those rows with my own hands. Taught Levi how to do it too. He wasn't just stealing land, he was trying to bury who I was. But he forgot. I had one last move. One that would turn everything upside down. When I got the letter summoning me to court for a mental evaluation, I didn't cry. I didn't yell either. I just sat at the kitchen table, stared at the paper, and remembered the day I signed over 40 acres to Levi for free. No paperwork, no lawyers, just a handshake and the hope that he'd carry on the Wilkes name with honor. That was 15 years ago. Back then, Levi had just turned 30. Full of fire and plans. Said he wanted to build his own section of the farm, make it more modern. I was proud. I told Alma, he's finally ready. We had 2 parcels, one 80-acre plot on the east side of the highway, and another 40-acre stretch by the creek. That was the one Alma loved most. She'd take morning walks there, pick wildflowers, and hum old hymns. When she died, I couldn't bring myself to visit it for months. But when Levi asked, I gave it to him. I want to build a future for my kids, he said. Give them something real. I smiled, nodded, and drove with him to the courthouse that same day. Transferred the deed without a second thought. I never asked for repayment. Never even checked on what he did with it. It was a gift. A father's gift to his only son. And now that same son was trying to put me under a court-appointed guardian, just to get the rest. Emily sat across from me at the table now, legal folders spread in front of her like a chessboard. They've scheduled the hearing for 2 weeks from today, she said. We'll need documentation, medical records, financial statements, a psychologist's evaluation, anything that shows you're of sound mind. I nodded. I already called Dr. Lowell. He said he'll write me a statement. Good, she said. We also need to bring character witnesses. People who can speak to your mental state, your independence. I rubbed my temples. You think they'll dig into the old land transfer? Emily paused. Yes. They'll try to paint it as proof you're impulsive. That giving Levi 40 acres without legal protections was a sign of poor judgment. I scoffed. Funny how generosity becomes mental decline when greed's involved. She didn't argue. The next day, I drove out to the old 40-acre plot by the creek. Levi had built a big red barn there, fancy-looking, with steel siding and solar panels. But the place felt empty. No cattle in the pens. No kids running around. It looked like a cover photo for a farm magazine. All shine. No soul. I parked by the edge of the field and walked down the dirt path where Alma used to go. The wildflowers still grew there, stubborn and bright. I picked one, purple and crooked, and held it between my fingers. A truck pulled up behind me. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. Levi stepped out. What are you doing here? I turned slowly. Just remembering. He crossed his arms. You planning to challenge the old land transfer now? Say I tricked you or something? No, I said. You can keep what I gave you. I'm not going to be like you. He flinched. But I will fight for what's mine, I continued. And what's still mine is everything else. He took a step closer. Dad, why are you doing this? You think Emily cares about you? You think some distant niece knows better than your own son? I think she hasn't lied to my face. That's more than I can say for you. He went quiet for a moment, then lowered his voice. You never chose me. That hit like a gut punch. What? You never believed in me, he said. Even when I was a kid, you were always harder on me than anyone else. You watched me like I was one mistake away from losing the farm. I stared at him. I watched you because I trusted you. I gave you the land, didn't I? He shook his head. Yeah, but you never gave me control. Never believed I could lead. I clenched my jaw. And what you're doing now? Filing court petitions behind my back? That's leadership? I'm doing what you won't, he said. Protecting the legacy. No, I said. You're stealing it. He didn't respond. Just turned, climbed in the truck, and drove away. I watched the dust rise from his tires, wishing, for the first time in a long time, that Alma was still here to tell me what to do. If this part of the story hit you deep, don't forget to subscribe. The next part reveals what Levi's been hiding, and it changes everything. That night, Emily brought over a folder she'd been digging through. "You're not going to like this," she said, setting it on the table. Inside were tax records. Levi's. The 40 acres I gave him? He'd taken out a mortgage on it, twice. Once to buy a second truck. The other to invest in some tech startup in Ohio. Both losses. Worse yet, he'd applied for federal farm subsidies using my name. My ID. "That's fraud," I said. Emily nodded. "If we report it, it becomes a criminal case." "Which would hurt the family name," I murmured. "You're not responsible for his actions," she said. "You built this legacy. He's the one tearing it down." I sat in silence, hands folded. I wasn't ready to send my son to jail. But I was also done protecting someone who thought I was disposable. We decided not to file charges, for now. But we used the evidence to strengthen our court defense. Emily included it in a sealed envelope for the judge, marked for review only. It would be enough to stop Levi's petition. Enough to show I wasn't the one losing control. The Sunday before the court hearing, I went back to church. This time, I wore my best denim jacket and the boots Alma bought me for our 40th anniversary. I took my usual seat in the fourth pew. Folks glanced at me again, but this time I saw more nods than whispers. After the service, Pastor Jenkins pulled me aside. "Ray," he said softly, "you need someone to speak for you in court. I'll be there. You're sharper than most folks half your age. You've earned our respect." "Thank you," I said, swallowing hard. "I might need that." I was still standing. Still fighting. Still here. Subscribe now so you don't miss the moment where everything falls apart and justice takes an unexpected turn. The courthouse smelled like old paper and floor wax. I hadn't been inside it since the day I signed that land over to Levi. Back then, I'd walked out feeling like a good father. Now I walked in wondering how far my son was willing to go to finish what he started. Emily and I sat at the front of the small courtroom. She had 2 legal pads, 3 copies of the will, and a folder marked confidential tucked under her arm. I wore my best flannel shirt and my wedding ring, still shining after all these years. Levi sat on the other side with Dina and their lawyer, a slick-looking man in a tight gray suit who didn't belong in any town with cornfields. Levi didn't look at me. Dina did, and smiled. The judge came in. She was younger than I expected, maybe mid-40s, with sharp eyes that didn't miss a thing. Her name was Judge Adrienne Cook, and she looked like the kind of woman who drank her coffee black and kept a backup pair of heels under her desk. She called the session to order. "We are here today regarding the petition for guardianship and mental competency review of Mr. Raymond Wilkes." I took a deep breath. The room felt hot. Emily stood. "Your Honor, we're requesting the court dismiss this petition entirely. Mr. Wilkes has supplied medical documentation confirming full mental capacity. We've also provided notarized financial statements and sworn affidavits from community members, including Pastor Jenkins." The judge nodded. "Noted. Let's proceed." Levi's lawyer stood next. "Your Honor, while we appreciate Mr. Wilkes's contributions to this community, our concern lies not in sentiment but in capacity. In recent months, Mr. Wilkes has made erratic decisions, including appointing a relative he hasn't spoken to in years as his power of attorney, bypassing his only son." Emily didn't blink. Mr. Wilkes made those decisions after discovering a coordinated effort to undermine his ownership of the family estate. That includes secret attempts to obtain control over his land and finances without consent. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Allegations." Emily slid a sealed envelope across the table. "Evidence." The judge opened it. Read in silence for almost 2 minutes. Then she looked up. This document shows Mr. Levi Wilkes applied for federal farm assistance using his father's identification, without power of attorney or consent. That's fraud. Levi turned pale. His lawyer leaned in and whispered something fast. Dina suddenly spoke. Your Honor, this is a family matter. Levi was just trying to help. Ray's health has been slipping, and we were trying to manage the land before things got worse. The judge stared at her. Fraud is not family. It's criminal. I should have felt victorious right then. But instead I felt cold. Because I saw the real betrayal. Dina's hand had slid off Levi's leg and into her purse. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't surprised. She knew. She'd helped him plan this whole thing. The judge recessed for a lunch break. We had an hour before the final decision. Emily and I walked outside and sat on a bench under a big oak tree by the parking lot. You think it's enough? I asked. Emily nodded. I do. The law's on your side now. I looked down at my hands. Funny thing about justice. It still doesn't stop the ache. She glanced at me. You still love him? I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the courthouse doors. I used to wake up at 5 a.m. every Saturday just to take him to Little League, I finally said. Even when I worked 60 hours that week. Alma would pack snacks. I'd sit there in the bleachers with her, proud as hell, watching him strike out and still run the bases like he hit a homer. Emily smiled sadly. That was love. Now he's trying to erase me before I'm even gone. She looked down. I know it hurts. It's more than hurt, I said. It's shame. That I gave him everything. That I trusted him with something sacred, and he spat on it. Emily's eyes filled with something fierce. Then we make sure he doesn't take anything else. When we went back in, the judge didn't waste time. Based on the evidence provided, I am denying the petition to assign guardianship. Mr. Raymond Wilkes has full legal authority over his estate and affairs. A wave of relief washed over me. But she wasn't done. Furthermore, I am forwarding the misuse of identity to the state attorney's office for review. If charges are deemed appropriate, you will be contacted. Levi's head dropped. Dina grabbed his hand. The judge banged the gavel. Court dismissed. Still with me? Don't forget to subscribe. You're not going to believe what happens next, because Levi wasn't the only one hiding something. Later that night, I sat in my kitchen with a whiskey glass full of sweet tea. Emily stayed late, organizing copies of the ruling. You did it, she said. You won. I didn't respond. Something in my gut felt wrong. Like the ground under the barn was shifting. I stood and walked to the back room. That's where I kept Alma's filing cabinet. Her old recipe books. Her notebooks. Photos of the farm. I reached for a red folder she kept at the bottom. Inside were letters. From Levi. Written when he was in college. Ones I never saw. I flipped through them fast. Most were normal, asking for money, thanking her for care packages. But one, dated March 1998, stopped me cold. Mom, I still don't get why you kept that from Dad. I have a right to know who my real father is. Just tell him. He deserves the truth, even if it breaks him. My knees buckled. I sat down hard on the carpet, folder in my lap. Emily heard the thump and rushed in. Ray? You okay? I handed her the letter with a trembling hand. She read it slowly. Her eyes widened. I'm not Levi's biological father, I whispered. She looked at me in disbelief. I stared at the ceiling like I could see Alma there. All these years, and she never told me. Levi didn't just try to steal the land. He didn't just lie in court. He had been lied to. And maybe, just maybe, that's why he resented me so much. Because he knew the truth. And I didn't. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window with Alma's red folder open across my lap, rereading the words that changed everything. My hands shook, but not from anger. Not this time. From grief. I spent my whole life thinking Levi was mine. Raised him, taught him, bled beside him in the fields. And still, deep down, I think I always knew something was off, not in his blood, but in how he looked at me. Like I was a shadow standing in front of the son he wanted for himself. Now I knew why. Alma had kept it from me. All these years. The woman I loved most in the world took that secret to her grave. And Levi, he'd been carrying the weight of it alone, probably since college. That bitterness I saw in his eyes, it wasn't just greed. It was pain. But it didn't excuse what he did. He had the truth all along and still chose to bury me in legal lies. The final town hall meeting of the season was scheduled for Saturday. Normally, I'd avoid the mess, too many nosy neighbors and too much bad coffee, but this time, I had a reason to show up. It was time to end this in the open. The Graceview Community Hall was packed. Folding chairs in tight rows, farmers in dusty boots, and women in floral dresses fanning themselves with old church bulletins. Levi and Dina sat near the front, smug in their Sunday best. Word had spread about the court ruling, but nobody really knew the full story. They were about to. I walked in through the main doors and stood by the podium. The room quieted as I stepped up. I didn't use a mic. I didn't need one. Folks, I said, clearing my throat, most of y'all know me. I'm Raymond Wilkes. I've lived in this town my whole life. Built my home here. Buried my wife here. And until recently, I thought I was leaving behind a legacy I could trust. People leaned in. Levi stiffened. I've been fighting a legal battle the past month. One I never expected. My own son tried to take control of my land by claiming I was mentally unfit. He filed a petition, tried to transfer ownership behind my back, and even misused my name for financial gain. Gasps echoed through the room. Dina looked down at her lap. But here's the truth that cuts deeper than any court case. I paused, locking eyes with Levi. I found out this week that Levi isn't my biological son. The air left the room like a balloon popped. Murmurs. One woman dropped her purse. Levi stood. That's enough. No, I said, raising my voice. It's not enough. You knew. You carried that truth for decades, and instead of coming to me like a man, you weaponized your resentment. You tried to take what I spent a lifetime building. People turned to Levi. He opened his mouth, but I kept going. Let me be clear. I don't care whose blood runs through your veins. I raised you. I taught you how to farm, how to drive, how to stand on your own 2 feet. I gave you land when you asked for it. I was your father in every way that mattered. But you threw that away the day you decided money was more important than honesty. Silence. Levi's voice cracked. I didn't ask to be lied to either. Mom hid it from me just like she did from you. Maybe she did, I said. But I never lied to you. Never once. He sat down hard. I took a breath. The will I rewrote isn't about punishment. It's about protection. Protection of the land. The history. And yes, my dignity. I looked around the room. So no, Levi won't inherit the full estate. He'll keep the 40 acres I gave him years ago. But the rest, the main farm, the equipment, the house, and the livestock, will pass to a conservatorship led by someone I trust. Emily stood from her seat at the back of the room. Graceful. Quiet power. Murmurs spread again. One older man clapped. Another woman wiped her eyes. The town hall adjourned in awkward silence. Folks whispered as they left, heads turning back toward me like they couldn't quite believe what they'd heard. Levi didn't speak to me. Dina rushed him out like she was dragging a child from a burning building. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done bleeding over people who couldn't love me back the right way. Emily and I stood in the gravel lot after the crowd thinned. Crickets started chirping, and the sky dipped into shades of lavender. "You all right?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "Better than I've been in years." She put a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You want to talk about Alma?" I stared off at the horizon. She made a choice. Maybe it was to protect me. Maybe it was fear. I don't know. But I wish she trusted me enough to tell me the truth. "I think she loved you," Emily said. "But secrets, they rot from the inside." I looked at her and smiled faintly. "So do regrets." We stood quietly for a moment longer before she added, "So what now, Uncle Ray?" I took a long breath. "I go back to work. Feed the cows. Tend the crops. And keep living. Because I'm not dead yet. No matter what anybody thinks." 3 weeks later, I held a will signing on the porch of the farmhouse. A small one. Just Emily, 2 witnesses from the credit union, and me. Emily slid the papers across the table. "This is the final draft. The land goes into trust. Your assets are protected. And if you ever want to amend anything again, we can." I signed with a steady hand. When I finished, I looked up at her. "Make sure it goes to someone who remembers why it matters." She nodded. "I will." I looked out over the fields. The wind moved the corn in soft waves, like it had a heartbeat. Alma used to say the land was alive. Maybe she was right. Because as I sat there, old but not broken, I realized something. The will was never about the land. It was about love, about truth, and about what we choose to leave behind when everyone else is already trying to write our ending. Comment. Share. This story was based on real-life struggles faced by families across rural America, where land, legacy, and loyalty collide. Subscribe now for more powerful stories that uncover deep family secrets, emotional betrayals, and the kind of justice that doesn't always come from a courtroom. You never know what's buried until someone tries to bury you.